having previously written an article on trickery. Moreover, the tricks people use to try and prove that they're gifted or have a sort of superpower. I've been encouraged to write this as some readers are interested in how real magic works. There is an air of mystery around magic, and it engages those who read and watch such films, like Harry Potter, and as such it fascinates those who believe in it. It is the art of initiates who keep its secrets, withholding it from all and sundry, which causes this mystique. The majority will consider magic and the occult one and the same thing, but as you will discover, this is far from the truth. I recall how I was intrigued by various texts and grimoires, some of which have been explored by Idries Shah, who explored Oriental magic in his literature. Eagerly, I found and read various texts exploring this mysterious subject. I wanted to discover what magic was, is, and understand its curious nature. The area is occulted to the many, hence the frequent link between the occult and magic. What would I find? Well, what I actually discovered was amazing. There are practices that have been preserved for hundreds of years, hidden amongst a plethora of pseudo-literature, so discovering real tomes of spells was initially difficult. This is how I stumbled across the writings by Idries Shah, and he explained the ideas behind magic very elegantly. Taking time to read further and investigate, I then left it alone for a while, until I had a moment of intense insight, waking me to the truth of magic. I acquired copies of antique works which I wanted to read with great interest, but as I began to read, it was like a screen shattered in front of me and I could see it for what truly was. It sounds all very melodramatic, I know, but after the realization, I was able to see how it worked, understanding the mechanics behind it all. First of all though, I'd like to start with what magic actually is, therefore I need to explain its history. For some of you, this will be old ground, yet for others it will be the first time they have been made aware of its origins. I expect that you imagine a grand origin, involving some supernatural entity bestowing sacred powers and knowledge upon an individual who was worthy of such a gift. No, it's nothing like that. In order to understand what magic is, we need to look at the root of the word's origin. We start by actually seeing how the term was twisted to become synonymous with hidden, illicit, and what would purport to be evil acts. After Alexander the Great conquered the Middle East, the ways of some of the Persians were frowned upon. So the original point of view provided by the predominant Greek, Macedonian Empire was this, that there were a tribe of Medes in a land that is overshadowed by the Zagros Mountains on the border of Assyria, with Elam and Persis to the south of it, northwest modern Iran, who are Magians and practice wizardry and sorcery. This was largely due to Heraclitus of Ephesus, who prophesied against the wanderers of the night, the Magians, the Bacchantes, the Maenads, and Initiates. Heraclitus threatens them with torches after death. He threatens them with fire, for what they believe to be initiations in the mysteries are in fact impious rites. From Clement of Alexandria, Protrepticus 12, later in history, Yaqut ar-Rumi writes, Asjunawand is said to have been in existence for more than 3,000 years, and to have been the stronghold of the Mazmahan of the land during the times of paganism. This word, which designates the high priest of the Zoroastrian religion, is composed of Mas, great, and Mohan, which means Magian. It would seem from accounts like this that the ways of old Persia were frowned upon. However, the Magian were not wizards, sorcerers, or otherwise. They were similar to the idea of the Levites in Judaism. They were a race, a tribe who were priests, performing duties for kings, but predating the Judaic beliefs. Just after Alexander's reign, the Magians were considered to be the same as Chaldeans and Brahmin, having no distinction. This is so far from what they were though. The Medes, who had followed somewhat pagan ideas, similar to those of the Vedic pre-Hindu culture, had seemingly changed course in their beliefs when Zarathustra appeared on the scene. The religion of the Zoroastrians developed from being a monolatry, henotheistic belief, one god amongst, but above many, to a monotheistic one, only one god, no other, and became the predominant belief system in Persia between 1500–1000 BCE. Throughout this growth, the Magus were priests who knew how to create fire, performed ceremonies and sacrifices, especially for others and their king, being healers for the majority of the time, so they were more of a doctor with a priestly overtone. They carried what they called a barsum, which was a bundle of twigs from different plants, trees. It appears that they had the knowledge of how to make a drink known as hauma, which comparable to the soma of Vedic tradition. In short, the Magus had extensive knowledge of how to create fire, use herbs and natural remedies. Where the ailment was not physical, they treated psychological illness by means of symbols, prayer and the similar ideas. The Zoroastrians came up with the idea that there is this world and a hidden one, behind a veil, sometimes referred to as the world of thought, due to not being able to see thoughts, people's intentions, motives etc. as they are not visible, where supernatural beings live. This unseen realm of thought was dealt with by praying to Ahura Mazda, God, with prayers of good thought. So they were not magicians in the sense we perceive due to popular misconception, but were intercessors, healers and priests. It's also said that the ancient Magus were a hereditary priesthood, being credited with profound and extraordinary religious knowledge, and some proved to be expert in the interpretation of dreams. It is thought that the Jewish prophet, Daniel, was included in the same class when Darius and Persian Empire conquered the Babylonians. The Jews were under the authority of the Babylonians, and many of the Jewish wise men were utilized in the kingdom. Being impressed by them, Darius continues their service under his rule, entitling Daniel, Rab Mag, Chief Magi. Under Darius the Magus were responsible for the land sacrifice, for which Darius made a monthly allowance of 30 liters of barley, fruits, and 10 liters of wine. The land sacrifice probably was a type of fire sacrifice, as fire is one of the Zoroastrian elements alongside earth, air and water. Interestingly, the history of the Magian probably goes back even further into Abrahamic history than merely meeting and working with them during the times when the Persians invaded and ruled the Jewish people. Academic Mary Boyce has this to say about the Magians: the idea that at least some of the Persian Achaemenids were Mazdians and followers of the prophet Zoroaster provided a comforting theological framework explaining their pragmatic political policy of religious tolerance. They were not just cold and calculating emperors holding the diverse empire together by turning a blind eye to other religions, but accepting and tolerant of other religions based on the fundamental belief in freedom of choice and that divine judgment was based on deeds, not religions. It was the intervening of Persians in Judaic history that enabled them to come up with a version of creation. The Mosaic books had been edited by Ezra, and if left to merely the Jewish historians, Genesis would have started at chapter 2 verse 4. This is why it looks like creation is explained twice in the book. For more information on this, please see the publication Origins Volume 1, Adam, Nimrod. Not only do we have the creation narrative in Genesis which the Persians helped with, but also a character that pops up only 3 times and is quite possibly of similar Magian origin. This person displays knowledge of offering bread and wine, is a king of peace, righteousness, tolerant of other faiths, gods, and is a high priest. His name is Melchizedek. You see, the Zoroastrians traveled, just as missionaries of any religion would, even ending up in China in the 8th century BCE, as it's possible some served in the court of the Western Zhou dynasty. The Nuremberg Chronicle suggests that Zoroastrianism was flourishing at the time of Abraham's father, Terah, and this is why it is possible that the mysterious figure of Melchizedek is of Magian descent. He meets with Abram during an episode in Genesis 14, 1-24, and brought out bread and wine, and is recorded as being a priest of God Most High. As Christians will recognize, this is a parallel that Christ performs in the Last Supper, and in the letter to the Hebrews, Jesus is classed as a high priest forever, in the order of Melchizedek. So was Christ a Magian? Well, the notion of one God and the knowledge of offering bread, grain and wine is certainly identical, but I don't think he is, or was, but the practices of the Essen are certainly similar to the Magian, and it's presumed that Jesus learned some aspects from their teachings. But I don't think Christ is a magician as such. He just knows how real magic works. And this is what we will now look at. Initiates in the various groups that keep this sort of thing hidden believe that certain processes work. The idea that certain amulets, icons, symbols, ingredients, etc. work is all due belief, so much so that it becomes something that has a certain mystique around it. The simplicity of this is covered with layers of complex requirements and has several hoops the magician needs to jump through in order to truly believe it will work. Needless to say, the essence of faith is in the knowing that it has already come to pass, it has already happened, it has been received. In a way, it works backwards. If one hopes, thinks it might be, doubts it will occur, and has the smallest of fears that it will not happen, then it won't. Instead of asking for it to happen, know it has already happened. There has to be the certainty of receiving it, not a hope but an absolute belief in the fact that it has happened, realized with an unwavering belief. It should be that you can see it, feel it, taste it, hear it and greet it with thanks and gratitude. It's thanking the higher power for the thing that has already come to pass, that is also integral to the process. Some people can conceptualize this process mentally, yet others will have to find that mental place where that unwavering belief, that certainty, the Hakal Yakin, is accessed. The items in the spells and incantations are symbols which help people to focus on certain elements of the process, and this is why they are employed. I don't for 1 minute think there's anything Harry Potter about magic, for essentially the process is about focusing on the actualized, realized item, event having already occurred and being grateful for it before it has transpired. The only thing about this magic is that it has two sides to it. Some will use it for the benefit of others, the world and the environment, whereas others use it for selfish ends. This also means that there is both light and dark magic. You may wonder why anyone would use it for illicit purposes, but there are people out there who do or will. Magic, faith, is a very real thing, extremely powerful, and anything can be achieved with it. Ponder over this for a while. When it comes to belief in God, why would anyone pray to a devil, demon, or otherwise? You may argue that they don't exist, but if someone believes they are summoning a demon, then who is to say there isn't one, for their faith may create it. And this is why I say that there is a supernatural, principalities, kingdoms and powers, Ephesians 6:12, similar to the Magian hidden world of thought. The Christian scriptures also tell us that when one or more people agree over something, the strength of faith is even more powerful and it will be granted by God. Truly I say to you, whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven, and, again, truly I tell you that if two of you on earth agree about anything they ask for, it will be done for them by my Father. Matthew 18:18-20. Why then should anything need to be bound or loosed? Because there are more things in heaven and earth, Horatio, than are dreamt of in your philosophy, as Hamlet says in Shakespeare's play. This is why one cannot truly say that there is no supernatural. Why on earth some people would want to use this for evil I find staggering, yet some will do this. It means that there's some walking amongst us who knowingly create evil for selfish reasons, to cause havoc and chaos. The question then rises, in relation to this, about summoning spirits. I've been lucky enough to have met two people who have specialized in the opposite side of faith from the Anglican Church, and the anecdotes they recall are utterly fascinating. They acknowledge that certain things do exist. I won't go into the whole, what is real and unreal, saga, but suffice to say, some individuals have experienced unusual phenomenon that is otherworldly. When it comes to the issue of summoning the dead, there can be a couple of ways it may be possible. First of all, I must stress that I am not talking about Ouija boards or any scrying medium tool. There are two ways that potentially a person can call the departed, by kiding and summoning. Beware though, for again, many who claim to do it only want your money. With kiding, It is actually a process whereby one envisions the person in front of them and imagines a conversation between the two of them. In order to do this though, a version of the person is constructed by the individual, who has built up an image and profile by studying the person in question. So really it is a virtual simulation formed from the ideas of the person and not a summoning. In regards to summoning, oddly enough there is anecdotal evidence for this in the Old Testament, being from Judaism and Christianity. The witch of Endor is recorded to have summoned the spirit of the prophet Samuel, 1 Samuel 28, 3-25. The incident even shocks the witch, as if she wasn't sure it would work. The Bible also says that we should not converse with the dead, which kind of indicates that it's possible, but is not encouraged. Don't sacrifice your son or daughter. And don't try to use any kind of magic or witchcraft to tell fortunes or to cast spells or to talk with spirits of the dead. Deuteronomy 18:11. Remember though, as I often say, beware of the fakers who just want to make a profit, and also be very aware that it shouldn't really be done at all. Moving on, one thing I find most interesting is that the majority who express an opinion suggesting there is no God, still have a belief in something, whether good and evil, magic, spirits and the afterlife. They, more often than not, do not consider the aspect of faith and how it works. If they did, I feel that they would probably eventually come to understand that there is something other than just this. Rhonda Byrne, writer of The Secret, has brought the magic of faith to life for many and revealed its secret to the world, making it accessible for all. I wonder if Rhonda and her readers understand the concept of this secret also being the fabric of magic and its sundry partners. If people truly understood the gravity and power of faith, magic, they would probably consider other aspects of what would appear to be spirituality. There are many aspects which are beneficial to life in general, being practical skills we can utilize to have a healthy, well-balanced life. This would mean, in essence, we all could be considered magicians, bringing a little magic into the world by simple, practical means. Now, inasmuch as there is a supernatural, light and dark magic, one wonders if this is, as Zoroastrians believe, a sort of dualist universe where good fights evil. As I explained to a friend of mine, there is one factor that the universe has written into the very fabric of all things: death. So, regardless of something being evil or otherwise, it will die, just as everything does. Nothing lasts forever. I describe it as a wave that comes crashing down over all things, which then distributes the remains everywhere, and these remnants are sifted and separated, to form into other things, as the universe loves to recycle. To conclude then, the idea of actual, real magic is far removed from what the majority perceive. In essence, traditional magic is herbal remedies, knowing how to create fire, healing, prayer and aid those with psychological ailments with symbols that reinforce the belief in healing. The magicians know about how all things are created by one God who sustains us with grain, fruit and water, and as such they offer these as gifts back to God as a thankful, frank offering, whilst being tolerant of others' beliefs. It's nothing like using a wand and using some spell to enchant someone. Moreover, it's completely different. Real magicians don't use spells, they utilize prayer and have unwavering faith. They don't have wands, they use branches of plants that have healing properties, and they know the secret of creation and acknowledge one creator. Being tolerant of those who worship other gods. These ideas have permeated through Persian thought, Zoroastrian belief, through to modern day beliefs. I'll leave you with these words that I believe Zarathustra wrote. I who have set my heart on watching over the soul, in union with good thought, and as knowing the rewards of Mazda Ahura for our works, will, while I have power and strength, teach men to seek after right. Ahunavati Gata 28. 4.